Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Cultivating the Culture. This is Sunday, March 21st, 2021. And today's what we're going to do is go over a book, Revolution by the Book. And this was written by Jamil Al Amin, previously known as H. Rap Brown. And we'll also have some videos of him in the past so you can know who he is. So, as always, we start our show off with some video footage, and here it goes. Thank you.
Nowadays, to learn how to do is see for yourself and listen for yourself and think for yourself, and then you can come to an intelligent decision for yourself. But if you fall
objectable, what it is that we object to is the ignorance that is involved in the violence that we see, the savagery. Again, this comes as a result of man-made thought, that man has divorced himself from the Creator. Man has devised a system whereby he has convinced men that the only thing that they are held accountable for is the life that they live now. So there's no remembrance of the hereafter. There's no remembrance of Allah. And with absence of the remembrance of Allah, then man becomes the beast. Allah says there will be a time in the last days that he will raise from amongst men a beast that will speak to them. The word dabata'ad is used. It is something that deals with the beast, in which Allah says, in the worst of beasts in the sight of Allah are those who will not believe, who does not have iman. Again, the only animal that we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the ability to have iman or faith is man. So Allah says without faith, then he is a beast. So you have a system that has been evolved, a system that has been devised, that is based upon violence from its inception. So how do you think the people would be immune? Why do you think the people would not be violent? You live in the most violent country on the planet, a country that is capable of dropping an atomic bomb on people. Why do you think that the people will not be affected by violence? Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us an understanding concerning what our responsibility is when we find people in a condition where the beastly nature of man will be ruling. And this is the condition that you find men in today. Again, we look at the different kinds of crime. Rape is epidemic, no longer an exception to the rule. Murder, epidemic, no longer an exception to the rule. Child abuse, child molestation, abortion. Again, drug abuse, sexually transmittable diseases. All of these things have become epidemic. Why? Because the beast is ruling men. Western society has reduced man to food, clothing, and shelter. And Freud says sex. But again, no spirituality, to the extent that he has separated church from state. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and he has breathed into man of his spirit. There's no way you can separate the responsibility of man spiritually from the secular responsibility of governing and ruling. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was once asked, what is the food of the angels? He said, the food of the angels is remembrance of the Creator. So again, man becomes human. He becomes aware. He becomes, again, that which Allah has decreed for him to become when he becomes aware of the Creator. Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, taqwa Allah wal husna khuluq. He has said concerning of those things that will make you successful, there are two. And it is taqwa Allah, consciousness of Allah, fear of Allah, and your ability to do good deeds. We seek refuge in Allah from misleading and from being misled, from betraying and being betrayed into ignorance by others. We ask Allah to confer upon us a look that is merciful, a knowledge that is useful, a heart that is enlightened, a tongue that is truthful, an intellect that is unerring, a countenance that is pleasing to Allah. And may Allah give us success in this life, and in the hereafter may He raise us in the company of the righteous. We seek refuge in Allah from a heart in which there is no remembrance, from a tongue that is not truthful, from a prayer that if it is answered will cause us loss, and from a soul that is ungrateful.
Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the statement by our brother Jamil Al Amin. And there's a lot of shows that's out. There's a lot of things that's going on right now to be able to make you aware of brother Jamil Al Amin, so you can understand his plight. He's been in prison unjustly for the past 20 years. This is at the beginning of 2000. They arrested him. And it was for murder, and the person that actually did the murder admitted that he did the murder, went to the police, gave the details, had the gunshot wounds and everything. But this brother, Jamil Al Amin, still remains in prison. And it's a continuation of this kind of call and tell type of program where you have these individuals that are in a position of leadership, and they follow them all the way through. Jamil, this show is not going to be one of the shows talking about his case as much, because, like I said, I would love for people to support it. His son has a strong effort, has a petition, getting people to get involved, especially with the Fulton County office, DA's office, but they have a crime innocence thing or something, so need to get involved with that, reaching out to them. What we're doing is, during the Black History Month, we were going to go over the brothers. We went over Malcolm X, we went over Marcus Garvey, Paul Robeson, and Frederick Douglass, and various other people, and basically leading you to modern day, leadership from that time. And for myself, when it comes to leadership, being that my father was an active person, my mother was active, and my father was active, so I've studied about different individuals. But for me to just follow somebody, I follow the Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him, and that's it. Other people I work with, I've been involved in different people's movements, I aided people throughout time. But Brother Jamil, when my father was in Atlanta Federal Penitentiary, Brother Jamil and them used to visit, or he used to communicate with my father. My father told me things about him, and so I've always had an interest, always tried to follow up on him and his community. And definitely, I remember when the incident happened, I knew something was going on. Something was strange. The way that they set him up to try to move him out. And then, of course, we had 9/11. And when we had 9/11, then there became this hysteria for the Muslims. And we had no one to speak. We had immigrants speaking for us, for Islam. And the thing is, people have to understand, if you have to go through immigration, and you have to go to an immigration officer, you have to watch what you say. That's natural. It's no different if I go to any other country. So, yes, alhamdulillah, you can teach me as much as I can learn the religion, but, I have to respect you and respect your situation, and wouldn't expect you to position or put yourself in any type of position. So it's important for people that are indigenous, that are here, and we have a lot of immigrants from other places that are American citizens, and, that don't worry, but it's important to have leadership that has a track record and of standing up, and that does not fear the system, and understands, as an American, I have the rights, and they exercise the rights. And there's very few people, if any, today, but definitely that are in the forefront today, that can stand up to what our brother Jamil Al Amin did, as far as being an indigenous person that stood up. And he has stood up throughout his life. He stood up in the 60s. He had his family that was involved. His brother was involved and got him involved in the movement. So, and he continued to be involved in this movement all the way up into this 9/11. And like I said, this hysteria that we had, and people were scared and apologizing because they're Muslim. I'm an American. I would not apologize to you for my religion. I don't have to. I don't expect you to apologize for yours. Live your life, live your religion, and I'm going to live mine. And we have to be able to stand. I'm an American. I have a right to bear arms just like anybody else to protect my family. I shouldn't be scared to say that, I have a right to bear arms. So this is the hysteria that is created by individuals, and what happens is people respond to a fear. They give out, they say something, you say a good effort, I want to join the NRA and be a good American. Oh, but I'm a Muslim, then they'll make a statement, then I have to defend. I'm not going to defend myself. I don't have to defend myself to you. I have to live my life like any other American citizen, just like you. And so, going back to this brother, Jamil Al Amin, I want to be able to first go into a little history, just a couple of videos, and there's segments from an interview. A lot of people show him with the Black Panthers and the statements that he made. Well, this is an interview that he had in 1968, and it was different subjects that he spoke about back then as a 25-year-old. because this is 68, he was born in 43, 25-year-old, and giving responses that was at such a high level. So think about it now. Think about it as a 77-year-old. Think about when he wrote this book, his thinking, how that was, when we had a start like this, and then him being able to get an education and get a balance, a checker, which was Islam. Islam gives you some type of conformance, some type of way of life, some type of balance, so you're not just doing what you want. And that's what happened with a lot of people from my father's time. My father was born in, my father was born in 42, so the same age. And I remember when my father came out, he told me when he came out of prison in the 70s, early 70s, he said everybody that was talking about revolution before he went in the 60s, he said when he came out, they was either selling heroin or doing heroin. You see, selling heroin or doing heroin. This would happen with the movement. And if you didn't have that balance, if you didn't have something to protect you from that new war that they put upon us, then you end up getting caught in that. Just like the situation with Huey P. Newton, who ended up being killed by a drug dealer. So what we're going to do is go over Jamil Al Amin when he was H-Rap back in 1968. And so first one, he made a comment during this interview and his lack of, and so we termed it lack of leadership. So let's play that and then we'll speak on it.
So I think the movement is a leaderless movement, whereas we might influence people, we do not control people.
Well, how does this solidarity come about if there is no specific leader?
I think eventually there will. I think as the struggle progresses, see, revolution does not occur in one stage. It's an evolutionary process. Like people go through different things. The masses of people become involved, then leaders are chosen. Right now you have a vanguard struggle that's occurring, whereby groups are fighting about discussing political ideologies which are relevant, which should be incorporated into the struggle or will be incorporated into the struggle. That's not to be misinterpreted with, like de-revolution, because it's just a phase of evolution.
Okay, and the next one actually was going to play Politics is a Tool of Organization. We're going to play that, go into number 2.
I think the vote can only be used as a tool of organization. We can only use the vote to organize our people. Now, to really believe that we can put someone in office and that these people would be responsive to our needs is naive, politically naive. Because even if one of the black candidates who ran for office was to take the office of president, then black people must be prepared to fight against that person.
Why?
Because, you see, the system mandates the action of the individual. The individual does not determine how this country will function. This country works off the military-industrial complex, which means that it's profitable to wage war. And unless you, devise another plan, another scheme to sustain, to boost this economy, then it's going to be necessary to wage war, whether, a black individual is in office or a white individual is in office. Well, so we're talking about a complete a change in system.
Actually, I thought it was going to be played on the screen, so we're going to start back from the beginning one, lack of leadership, and I'm going to make a comment. So let's put that back on the screen so we can go over that statement. Like I said, it was 25-year-old, excellent answers, very wise brother. Like I said, so that was over 50 years ago. So where will we be now?
Whereas we might influence people, we do not control people.
Well, how does this solidarity come about if there is no specific leader?
I think eventually there will. I think as the struggle progresses, see, revolution does not occur in one stage. It's an evolutionary process. Like people go through different things. The masses of people become involved, then leaders are chosen. Right now you have a vanguard struggle that's occurring, whereby groups are fighting about discussing political ideologies which are relevant, which should be incorporated into the struggle or will be incorporated into the struggle. That's not to be misinterpreted with, like de-revolution, because it's just a phase of evolution.
See, and it's beautiful, the statement that he made, and we look at it now. Now that the movie came out, about Fred Hampton Jr., Fred Hampton, and the Black Panthers. People are coming into a mindset of a revolutionary mindset. But the reality is that we have no leadership. And so you have movement, but you don't have leadership. You have individuals, but it is not one effort, one goal. And it is important for us to be able to establish a goal. And if you listen to his statement, the way that he's able to break it down is beautiful. Next week, he talks about politics, that politics is a tool of organization and the purpose of organization.
I think the vote can only be used as a tool of organization. We can I think the vote can only be used as a tool of organization. We can only use the vote to organize our people. Now, to really believe that we can put someone in office and that these people would be responsive to our needs is naive, politically naive. Because even if one of the black candidates who ran for office was to take the office of president, then black people must be prepared to fight against that person. Why? Because, you see, the system mandates the action of the individual. The individual does not determine how this country will function. This country works off the military-industrial complex, which means that it's profitable to wage war. And unless you devise another plan, another scheme to sustain, to boost this economy, then it's going to be necessary to wage war. Whether, a black individual is in office or a white individual is in office. Well, we're talking about a complete a change in system.
And look at that statement that he made. He made this in 1968. And he said that this place is a military-industrial complex. And basically, that's part of the economy. Part of the economy is they make money from war. Whenever there's a situation, we have a war, and then they can be able to get involved. People are selling things. So what happened when he talked about it, he talked about that war that they had, in Vietnam, and the people that were making money for it. But he also said that even if we had a person that became became the president, that he just has to do his job. Even like we look at Obama. Obama did an excellent job as a president, as an individual, but he actually had to do his job, and he had limitations. And we continue to be in wars, continue to send drones, continue to do these things which people profit and they make money off of. That's the reality of that situation. And this is a 25-year-old speaking. Let's try to find some 25-year-olds that can converse like that. Next revolution is for oppressed people. Number 3.
Going to be a race revolution, or is it going to be a class revolution?
I think, like in terms of struggle and who will comprise the revolutionary front of that struggle, it will be oppressed people. See, black people are in the vanguard position of the struggle because we've been the most dispossessed. However, there are other oppressed people in this country: the Mexican American, the Spanish American community, the Puerto Ricans, American Indian, Japanese Americans, and even poor whites. But racism, I don't believe that racism will allow poor whites to form alliances with the revolutionary groups in this country.
Statement made 50 years ago. And look how true it is today when he talks about it. I mean, we're not the only oppressed people. A lot of times I hear blacks always talking about we're the only ones, forgetting that the native was totally eliminated. Most of us have native blood. Talking about the racism that the Latinos go through, the racism that now, as we're seeing even with the Asians, everybody goes through it. And even as far as whites, there are many that are oppressed because of economics in their situation. But that's why they're always dividing. They're always keeping us to not be able to get together. The wealthy, because of wealth, they control the media. They control the jobs. They control the industry, this military-industrial complex. And so it benefits them for us to be divided upon race and nationality and saying, I'm the only one that's oppressed. Next one is organize the masses, which is important for us.
People, because what media has done is media has always singled out people who had vanguard positions or vanguard attitudes and tried to make these people an enemy of the masses of people. In our case, make individuals enemies of black people. Malcolm X would be a good example. more Negroes feared Malcolm X than white people because news media told black people that Malcolm was bad. Muhammad Ali, the reason that Muhammad Ali could be given the maximum sentence and the maximum fine and the black community did not revolt was because Muhammad Ali had been made an enemy of black people. Adam Clayton Powell could be legally lynched, politically lynched, and black people did not revolt was because the man had told black people that Adam Clayton Powell was an uppity nigger. He had legitimatized his own action through news media. So the news media is a tool of oppression.
And this is 1968, and he's speaking about it. I remember growing up as a young child, you know, my parents was followers of Malcolm, so we always praised Malcolm. But people didn't love Malcolm like they do. Blacks didn't love him like they do after the movie came out. Everybody, oh, I was there with Malcolm. I love Malcolm. And the reality is people don't love him because if you look at what his message was helping his people, but he had to be able to follow the guidance. His message was Islam, and many people avoid that aspect of it. Look at Muhammad Ali. You know, the people hated him at the time for the things he was saying. Blacks were scared for him to be able to make those statements. But Muhammad Ali was requested by most of these, you know, white universities to come speak. Same thing with Malcolm. Before Malcolm passed, all of Dartmouth and all of these other Oxford and places were calling for Malcolm X to come speak. Why? Because they saw that this man went from being like their parents who were racist and being a racist, saying that the white man was the devil and all of this, and changing that attitude. And Islam changed his attitude from, you know, saying the white man is the devil, being a racist, to inclusion, to real Islam, and having to admit, you know, that a person is not a devil because of what their skin color. A person is the devil for their misguidance and who they follow. If they follow the example of the devil, then they follow his example, and that's any color. So the next one is individuals don't lead movements.
Always been an enemy of black people because what media has done is media has always singled out people who had vanguard positions or vanguard attitudes and tried to make these people an enemy of the masses of people. In our case, you know, like make individuals enemies of black people. Malcolm X would be a good example. More Negroes feared Malcolm X than white people because news media told black people that Malcolm was bad. Muhammad Ali, the reason that Muhammad Ali could be given the maximum sentence and the maximum fine and the black community did not revolt was because Muhammad Ali had been made an enemy of black people.
Doing the same thing with David Kaepernick. With Kaepernick.
And black people did not revolt was because the man had told black people that Adam Clayton Powell was an uppity nigger. He had legitimatized his own action through news media. So the news media is a tool of oppression.
Go on to the next one. Like you said, the thing is they let the media and the
enemy of black people because what media has done is media has always singled out people who had vanguard positions or vanguard attitudes.
Okay, we're going
to make these people an enemy
back on the same one. We're playing that over. But like you said, the media, they end up choosing people. When you talked about, you know, Malcolm and these situations, you talked about Muhammad Ali, and then when you talk about Adam Clayton Powell, what they'll do is they'll say that he's a bougie person. And so then we get the regular super black Negroes that's going to be against him because he's bougie, not looking at the things that he's doing, because they'll listen to the media and they'll respond to their negativity. Just like we look at the situation with George Washington Carver, and Booker T. Washington, and people talking about, you know, what type of people they were. But the reality is we look at the institutions that they have and that people were able to benefit from it. And they continue to do that, and they continue to do this now to be able to determine what we're going to say about individuals or leadership. And that's what media's job is, and they continue to be successful at their, you know, diversions.
Passed in this country for the past 10 years have been laws of a repressive nature to deal with black people. In other words, the Omnibus Crime Bill speaks directly to black people. The Anti-Riot Bill tells black people when they can travel, how they can travel, and if they can travel. The McCarran Act of 1950, Internal Security, which came as a result of the Internal Security Act, created concentration camps in this country for black people. And so I think, you know, like in terms of the repression and in terms of the role of the vanguard groups, I think that the role of the vanguard group is to bring that repression down before the timetable that has been set up by the system runs its full course. It's our responsibility to get the masses involved And the way you get the masses involved is that you bring the repression down. And you begin to execute political programs, and out of necessity, the system has to do certain things to control or try to put an end to the type of political action that you're executing. And by doing this, they involve the masses of people. The masses of people, from our position, from our viewpoint, it's unorganizable. You can't hope to organize the masses of people. Oppression organizes the masses of people. White folks make more revolutionaries than I ever could make.
And see, this is one of the things. Look at this statement. This statement is a statement of guidance today. If you look at what this 25-year-old man at the time was saying, that you have to set up programs. And this is what the Panthers were doing. They were our children were going to school hungry. So they decided to set up a program. And then, of course, we had the competition where they came to set up their own program and set up their breakfast program. And what he's saying is, it's not just that we have to come up with slogans and signs. We have to be able to study and see what the success is and set up programs. So if they don't do it, then we do it. And this is this is what he said, this is what they said, and this is what they did. Next one.
Created a decentralized type of decentralization occurring whereby we created other people to be spokesmen. People have to get out of the idea that individuals lead movements. See, the revolutionary is the individual who's on the other side of that camera. These are the people who will make the revolution. They have responsibilities to the revolution and to themselves. And if individuals articulate positions, it's perhaps because they have public forums. Not because they know more than anybody else, not because they are more oppressed than anybody else. So black people have to begin to understand the role that they have to play in that revolution is determined by them.
Like you said, the revolution is on the other side of the camera. And the revolution is on the other side of the camera right now. You have to know that's your job. That's what you have to do. It's not the people that they're putting up there, they're put in front. And what they did is they make you think that individuals are the people that's going to lead the revolution. You have these people that are paid politicians, and that's what they do. They are paid responders. Whenever something happens, you always see them there. But they're individuals, they're doing their job. But their job is not the only job. It is not their responsibility. It is your responsibility. It's our responsibility. So, but like you said, a situation of oppression is what makes a change. And we have to react with the oppression, but react with programs, react with intelligence, react with reading, react with studying the system, and using the system so you can be able to change it instead of protesting, using the system, understanding it, and then filing against them continuously. Next.
You feel that that the law is justice is truly blind, or you feel that it's
No, justice ain't blind. Justice see white folks mighty well. As a matter of fact, justice means just us white folks in this country. See, for black people, justice is a joke. No such thing as justice in this country for black people. The courts are a tool of oppression. The courts, help to execute the genocide, the type of genocide that's been practiced against black people in this country for 400 years.
The courts are a tool of oppression. 50 years later, the courts are a tool of oppression, and they still use it. They punish us, and they make sure that we get these long sentences and other sentences. Now they're legalizing marijuana, but they're not going back to free the people that they arrested just on regular charges, because now they were in the system. But the courts are a tool of oppression 50 years ago. This is a statement. This is the mindset that this brother had. And I'm giving you this preview before we go into the review of Revolution by the book. Because, him accepting Islam did not have him change his mind and not be as knowledgeable there. It had him grow and to be more wise. Next.
What effect is the end of the Vietnam War going to have on the situation here in this country?
I think that if, America has ever run out of Vietnam and defeated as they should be in Vietnam, then black people over here will have to, be in a position where they can defend themselves. Because I think that aggression that's being directed against the Vietnamese people will be turned inwardly against black people in this country. See, America, in terms of where she goes and who she controls, the whole sphere of influence is diminishing. America is fighting on about 5 or 6 different fronts right now. Latin America, like Africa, Middle East, and Vietnam, and here domestically. So I think that, given the system and given that it operates off the military-industrial complex, which means that war is profitable, and that, like General Steel, USS Steel must make steel for tanks to hire people, to give people jobs so they can spend the money to buy other goods. The very fact that the system operates off that principle means that when the man comes back, when the man is run out of every country, then it will become necessary to wage war in his own country.
Now, he said this in 68. What happened in 1980 when Reagan came in? We had a what? A war on drugs, which means the war on the black man, the war on the community, the war on his own people. Like you said, we have a military-industrial complex which knows that war is profitable. So a war on drugs is profitable. A war on drugs, what was the profit? How did they make it? So we have to look at that with the private prisons. We had to open up the private prisons. We had, so much money that was made from this so-called war on drugs. We had a war on drugs, but yet we went into Afghanistan, and when the Taliban was there, they had stopped the sale of heroin. They stopped selling drugs. Then we went in there and we brought it back. But we weren't attacking that, and they still are not attacking the drugs, even though we have a war on drugs. But like he said, after Vietnam, what did they do? They would turn on the people. So when we're going back to Revolution by the Book and this brother accepting Islam, this was continuous with what he knew was going to happen, which it did happen. But he safeguarded himself. Why? Because he found that he had to be able to align himself with someone that had some proper guidance, with someone that received revelation, and that's what he did. He aligned himself with Muhammad ibn Abdullah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and peace be upon him, who received the guidance from the Creator. And for you Christians that say that you're a Christian, you follow Jesus, then align yourself with Jesus, that received the revelation, that received the guidance, and follow his example. Not follow the people that just scream his name. Follow the people that lived the life. And if you did, then when they came in with their war on drugs and they sent their missiles in with the heroin, they sent their missiles in with the opium, they sent the missiles in with the crack, they sent the missiles in with all of these things, and with the movies and the pornography and all of the filth and the rap and all of these other things. If you're following an example of Jesus, if you're following an example of Muhammad, if you're following an example of Moses, peace and blessings be upon him, it wouldn't have affected us, and we wouldn't be talking about what they do to us. They do this, they do that. So, this what this brother did, and he went to the next step, and he prepared us. The revolution continues. Next.
You see, because money has never been a problem for this country in terms of allotting money, because, you see, money here is not based on gold. It's not really based on the goods that produce. This is the lie that's been told. And it's been sold to black people as green power. Green power is a myth. See, because as long as a man possesses the power to change the color of money, then the color of money is not significant in struggle. He can give black people all the green money in the world and tell them they're using red money tomorrow. Black people have to go work for red money. In terms of what he did to the international monetary system. Now, the United States has a budget, an annual budget of $800 billion. They had only $12 billion worth of gold. In terms of their foreign spending, it exceeded the quantity of gold that they had in this country. So France was putting pressure on the United States by demanding payment in gold from paper currency. So what the United States did was that the United States said, okay, we're going to change the rules. They put pressure on the international monetary system, and they changed the whole international monetary standards from gold to paper gold. And they did that because they have power. Not because the money they had was so good. They had power.
And with power, you can be able to control and make the changes. Here is what he said in 1968, and here we are in 2021. And what has happened to money? Is money green? Money's your card in there. Now we have Bitcoins. Now we have it that they can be able to make who they want to a billionaire or the richest man in the world. Why? Because we're going on the speculations on the stock, what the value is, and we can change his value and say the value of that stock is something. So that has become the money. And so before it used to just be on hard assets, but now we're just going on the expected assets. That's how we can have it that Kanye West is now the richest black man ever. Because why? They valued his stock at this amount, and they've given him that amount. So it's not because he has that amount in gold backed up, and that's what money was. Like you said, money. If money is green at the time, he said they can change it to red, and this is what they've done. So, and one of the things that I wanted to point out with this man is at 25 years old. Now, think about it. He started college, I think at 16, 15, 16 years old. So to be able to have that type of knowledge, be able to have that, he had to be able to study. And a lot of times we're caught up in rhetoric and slogans, and, we listen to somebody say it and we just mimic what they say. We have to go back and return to it. I was watching a video during the studies, and it was a protest that he had, and it was a friend of his that knew him when he was a younger man. This was a historian, and he had knew Jamil Al Amin when he was in Louisiana, and he talked about how this man was bright and studied. And he said to the crowd, he said, I see people out there, you have your signs, this is good. He said, but what you need to do is you need to come with books. He said, next time come with books so you can be able to study and learn. And this is what we have to do. We have to be able to read books. We have to be able to read things and learn things, learn from the people of the past. Here it is, we got something from 50 years ago, and we're learning. But it took research, because if you go to the regular ones, you're going to see him with Stokely Carmichael. You're going to see him talking about the white man this and the white man and the gun and these type of things. And this is what they want to do. They want to show you, because a lot of people are not into that. A lot of people can be able to use that, and then we end up getting into an argument about whether this is right and this is wrong, and I'm going to back that out, is going to work. One of the things that people have to realize is in the 1960s, the reason why they were talking so much about the guns and what was going on, we had a war going on, Vietnam. And there was a regular cycle, a cleansing process that they would do, a moneymaker and a cleanser. Civil War, we had it. The most amount of people that was killed at any time, Americans, was killed during the Civil War, and many of us. So that slave problem was reduced greatly because of the amount of people that was killed during the Civil War. Then the next one, we had the draft and the amount of blacks that was killed during World War I. Then the next one, we had World War II and the amount of blacks that was killed during World War II. So we was going through our regular cycle, and with Korea, and then after Vietnam, we were going to the front line, and the people got tired. And the youth said, look, why am I going to go over there and be killed? If I'm going to fight, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die right here. So we're looking at the gun thing. It's like, okay, you're saying that these people walk around with guns here in America, but these same individuals were 17, 18, 19, you're sending them over there in the jungle with guns and napalm and torches to be able to burn people and kill people. But then you say, oh, well, you're not supposed to be that way with the oppression that you're having here. And that's what was going on. But that was that time. But now we're in a different time, because, like you said, this is a place that makes money. It has from war, and that war on drugs. The war on drugs. What did that do? It got us first, like you said, before the war on drugs. He announced it. Reagan announced it in the 80s, but it started in the 70s, and they started with the heroin. They started with the pimp movies. They started with all of these things. And what happened is we were attacked, and then they put false leadership. They chose who you want to. They make, pimps your heroes, Superfly, and all these type of things and stuff, and they'll show these type of movies. And then we're looking at them, and we're gaining the misguidance from people that who are benefiting, because, like you said, it's a war machine. And the war is not with the gun right now for us. The war is a civil war that's going on, that's taking our soul, that's taking our mind, that's taking our body. So when our brother, Jamil Al Amin accepted Islam in 71, and he did time in Attica, and after he came out, he went to Georgia, and when he went to Georgia, he set up a community. So this man didn't stop, but what happened is the media coverage stopped. And then, just like they did with Adam Clayton Powell, where they said he was a bougie Negro, and and we ignored him, the super black Negroes. Well, the super black Negroes said that H-Rap, is into the religion thing, and they still, saying the same old calls or whatever, not, acting as though the war was still with this gun. But the war was with our spirit. The war was with our soul. You see, the war, they were killing us through our bodies. And one of the things is, in this book, I had the book actually when it first came out in the 90s. And I got it, and I started reading it at the beginning. And at the beginning, basically what he does is he goes over the pillars of Islam. And so for me, it was kind of elementary. And I started reading it, and then I didn't finish it. But when I did this book report, and studying the brother, I said, you know what, I'm going to go through this whole book. And I started reading it, and I started understanding, and I started looking at the history, and I seen what the thing about Brother Jamil Al Amin. Jamil Al Amin, he focuses on, first the worship of the one God. And one of the things that we have to realize is that people are confused about the creator of existence, or God, really God. If I say to the average Christian, I say to the average Jew or the average Muslim or submitter to the commands of the creator, they're talking about the creator of the universe, we all understand. But if I say Allah, if I say Jehovah, if I say Yahweh, we're going back and forth. Oh, well, who's that? Or whether I can make a choice whether I agree with him or not. But when I talk about the creator of existence, we all know that there's one creator of existence that has created this earth, that has created all things. So he focuses on worshiping the creator of existence and calling us to it. He's not just calling the Muslims in this book, the revolution by the book. It's revolution, the change that we have to make. The change that we have to make now is we have to make that spiritual change. We have to get connected to our Lord. We have to not follow the plans and the traps that they're having us, where our youth are rejecting the faith, the message of Jesus, the message of Muhammad, the message of Moses. Why? Because they're telling you that it's some white man or somebody else, or it's not your people, and it was brought to our people and oppressed. But if you look at the books and you look at the examples of these men, if we follow these examples of these men, would the black man be in this situation? Would he be irresponsible? Would he be in this condition? If you follow the examples of Jesus, not preaching Jesus, if you followed how he lived and what he did, would you be, eating all of these things? Would you be fornicating? Would you be doing adultery? And for us, the reality is there's either legal sex or illegal sex. Legal sex is sex with your wife that has been sanctioned by the creator. Everything else is in another category, whether you're with this group, that group, this person, it's all in the same. It's illegal. So what was Jesus? What did Jesus encourage you to? Like he told the prostitute after he said to her, he told them, for our accusers, he told the people, whoever is without sin, cast the first stone. They all left because they had sins that they had to take care of. But what did he say? He told her, don't sin no more. And after she joined and she became a part of it, and she wasn't a sinner, she wasn't prostituting. But here it is today, they selling you that. We had the Grammy Awards, and they're showing people up there, and they're saying that this is liberation. Who's going to say that this is liberation? Now, if I had a book, and I took the book of the devil, and I put his misguidance in, and everything that you've seen on that show, and all the other things that they call on you too, what they call in your music, they call it would be clear. This is misguidance. This is the things, but they're making us think that this is liberation. This is revolution. This is change. No, it is not. This is degradation. So in here, he focuses on the 5 pillars of Islam, going over, he's worshiping the one God, or the 5 pillars of submission to the creator of existence. Then he talks about, in here, he uses different ayats or different verses from the revelation that was sent to the final prophet. He talks about zakat, and he relates it to the things that he talked about here on the show previously. I mean, here on the show, or here in the 60s previously. So he is a continuation of the revolution, because revolution evolves. Revolution doesn't stay the same. If you still hear people that say they were revolution, they still talk about the same thing 50 years ago, know that they are not connected, because things have changed. And if you're not changing with it, if you're not adjusting, if you're not putting on the proper material, to the proper guard, the proper armor to protect yourself again, then you're not there. You're just getting the people set up, or you're probably not being shot at. And you're just getting our people shot at. That's it. So he talked about it. He went over, he talked about the diets. And he went in, he talked about, the 4 pillars of Islam. But one of the things, and the show's time is going by, I got to the last chapter, and I want y'all to read it. And actually, I put it on. He talks about family values. These are the things that we need. I suggest Christians, I suggest Jews, I suggest Muslims, people all read this book, you see, and read it, and to be able to relate to it. And like I said, the word Allah means the God. When he talked to the Christian, when he talked to the Jews, when he talked to the polytheists, then he talked to all the people during this time, the Prophet Muhammad, they all understood who Allah was because they spoke Arabic. So it'd be like I'm saying the creator of existence, so we didn't have the confusion. But most of the time, like I say, when I speak it today, then people are confused. But so going back to it, he talks about the creative existence. This is what our Creator has sent. So going to this last chapter, and he talks about it, it's an excellent book, and you gotta get it, you gotta read it, you gotta be able to protect yourself, because the war on drugs, now they're out and out. The war on drugs is right. The war on drugs is the war on us, the war on mankind, the war on righteousness. It is, national, international, that the people have joined together and tried to push a agenda of unrighteousness. So it is important for us to be able to put some type of armor on, some type of protection on, and some type of guidance. So many times I hear ignorant people, they'll text me or say something, or with some comments and say something silly, but they're not used to people that actually study and can be able to respond back. And they'll, and they're misguiding people, playing with the religion. And then I just go right to their webpage. I go to their Facebook. They'll make a comment. I go to Facebook and I see they got clown stuff on, like a little clown. So here it is, but you're attacking people, and other people think that they're sincere. But then when you really look at them, you see that they're not sincere. One of the things about our brother Jamil Al Amin is this man has been sincere from the time of high school and before high school. It must have had a really great parents. He had strong brothers and he had strong people around, and he maintained his sincerity. But here we are, that they locked him up, and it's been 20 years, even though a man has admitted to it. But even though we had Andrew Young, who was ambassador, who was the mayor of Atlanta, back up, because he looked at the evidence, he looked at the situation. We have it that Coretta Scott King spoke for this man. When you have the type of people that are speaking for this man, and they've seen the consistency of this man throughout his life, they know that this is not that type of person. But here it is, we have the evidence. But this is a continuation of that program, like I told you, with the same thing from Marcus Garvey, the same thing from Malcolm X, the same thing from Fred Hampton, where it's a continuous program. And so just because J. Edgar Hoover is gone, he had many people that he positioned, and they continue to be able to push that program, and nobody checks them. It's important for us to study the law. It's important for us to know the law. It's important for us to first know the law of the Creator. And one of the things that he emphasizes in this is us to go back to our natural fitra, if you look at it. And our faith and our understanding, which is the correct understanding from the Creator, because we have the message, is that man is not born sinful. Man is born submissive, and he submits to a Creator. We have a natural fitra. And as he says in this book, he talks about that sociologists, they'll go and they'll study, and they'll go to a society, a primitive society, and they see how those people live. And then they'll come back and they'll tell you the natural nature of man, because they know that we are living in an unnatural society. These things that we have here are what? Created by man. Created by man's propaganda, what he's pushing out, and then they say that it's natural. Like these, and so if you talk about it, we talk about the natural fitra, and this is what it's calling you to. Going back to that natural state, going back to natural foods, even the foods that we eat. We talk about the diet that we have. And he talked about it when he talked about the things with the chicken and these other, steroids that are put inside. And you're wondering why the people are acting this way, having these health problems. Why are they growing so quickly? Why are the men acting this way, the women acting that way? Because of the diets that they have. So he calls you to going back to the natural fitra. But I wanted to read something from the last part. And like I said, please, I'll try to post it. I made a mistake, reading. So I'm gonna, correct it and try to read it again. But I suggest that you get the book, download it. But his is, I'm gonna read finish lines. And so he starts off and he says, in the name of the creative existence, the beneficent, the merciful. This is from chapter 21, verses 104 to 106. And this is from the last revelation that our Creator sent. And we call it the recitation, because it is supposed to be recited. We read it, but the reality is supposed to be recited. So we hear it, we speak it, we live it, and we practice it. It says, in 104, it says, the day we shall roll up the heavens as a recorded, roll it up a written scroll. As we begin the first creation, we shall repeat it. It is a promise binding on us. Lo, we are to perform it. And verily we have written in the Psalms, after the reminder, my servants the righteous shall inherit the earth. Verily, in this recitation is a message for people who would truly worship the creator of existence. And so he starts off this, he said, this is his statement, all praise is due to the creator of existence. And I'm going to use creator of existence because, like I said, the confusion with people with Allah. And our prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, had sat down with the polytheists, and this is Treaty of Hudaybiyah. And when he wrote the statement, or he didn't write it, his scribe wrote it. They wrote in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. They wrote in Arabic, and Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. And so the people had a problem with that. Not Allah, they didn't have a problem. These are the Muslims. These are the people that dealt with the Jews and dealt with other people. They knew who Allah was. They knew who the creator of existence was. But the term Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, they didn't use. They said, no, we don't know who that is. They thought it was another God. Just like you guys sometimes, or people sometimes thinks that, Muslims are worshiping another God when they say Allah. So we're going back to the creator of existence. So we're using that. But what did our prophet do? And this is our example. This is what we follow. He said, okay, no problem. Cross it out. He said, we just use what you know so you understand. You see, we understand who that is. By him crossing out, was him eliminating, being scared, compromising for these people? No. He focused on objectives. And what was the objectives? To deliver the message. Because that's what he was there for, to deliver the message. So he starts, all praises due to creative existence. We seek his help, and we ask his forgiveness, and we seek refuge in the creator from the evil of our own selves. Whomsoever the creator guides, no one can lead him astray. And whoever he allows to go astray, no one can guide him. I bear witness there's no deity worthy of worship except for the creator of existence. And I bear witness that Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is his servant and he is his messenger and the last prophet. He sent him with the truth, sent him as a bearer of good news on the face of the coming hour of judgment. Whoever obeys Allah and his messenger is on the right path, and whoever disobeys the creator of existence and his messenger, he only harms himself, and the creator of existence will not be hurt in the least. So then he says, I seek refuge in the creator of existence from misleading and being misled. This is important because many people don't seek refuge. And the way that you seek refuge from misleading is that you have to study, because you can have all the good intentions in the world, but if you're ignorant and you haven't studied the word of the creator, you haven't studied what it says, you will make a statement that is actually contrary. You haven't learned anything like what we're going to be going over during the month of Ramadan, this book, and it's called Reasons of Revelations, the reason Asbab al-Nuzul, and this is by Sheikh Muqbil ibn Hadi al-Wadi. And so this is explaining the revelations, explaining the reasons, so you can be able to understand what was happening when this revelation came. And it's important for us to be able to gain knowledge. Too much ignorance is there, and ignorance is praised because everybody says the same statement. So he says, I seek refuge in the creator from misleading and being misled. Amen. From betraying and being betrayed into ignorance by others. Amen. I ask our creator to guide my heart and to guide my tongue. I seek refuge in the creator from Iblis, Satan, the rejected. This is important for us to do this because many people are led astray, and a lot of times we do. And we live in a society of ignorance, even though we have all the technology for us to be able to learn. Like I said, this war that they have is to take your soul. The war that they have, the Cold War, this is not the physical war. They're not having the wars, but they're continuing that same war that they pronounced on us in 1968. And this war and what they did with our brother was to remove him from our society, because they want you to have leadership that does not care about the creator. They want you to have leadership that you will have people that have empty words. They say they recognize that they're going to follow Jesus, but they do not follow the example of Jesus. They're going to follow Muhammad, but they do not follow the example of Muhammad. They're going to follow Moses, but they believe in Moses, but they're not going to follow the example. If these are the messengers and the representatives of the creator, then you have to be able to follow the example. So, like I said, this is a must read. It's an excellent book. And when you read it, you're going to understand the importance of us being able to get that brother out. You're going to also understand why he's in. When you talk about politics, is it political? No, it is because of faith. And with faith, then we can return to who we was. In this book, he talks about our people looking for that old-time religion, right? This is from us. What got us out of slavery was our belief in our Creator, our obedience, our word, our honor, our love for our Creator. And he answered the call. But now who are we calling on? We're calling on whatever. We're doing what we like. We're doing whatever we want to. And one of the beautiful things, when I read this book, it made me think about when my father got out of prison and I was in college, and, Boston University, and there, and, listening to the rhetoric of the people. And my father is revolutionary, this 1984, I think. Yeah, 84, 83, 84. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to my dad, and I'm trying to show off to him, show him that, I'm conscious. And I'm like, yeah, they doing this and they this and they that. And he looks at me and he says, you keep saying they. Who's they? I said, Dad, they. Like, white man. He said, you acting like we puppets on a string. That all you got to do is just, take our arms and move it up and down and we do whatever they say do. He said, look, the thing that we fought for in the 60s was access. He said, you got access. He said, so take advantage of it. Take advantage of everything that you can. He said, the things that you talk about, son, he said, I couldn't imagine. He said, here I am, I always wanted to be in the Air Force, in the Air Force Academy. My uncle was our uncle was a Tuskegee Airman. And so here I had 1408 on the SAT, had to, never failed the test in my life. And then they're telling me that I failed the test for the academy, And so then I had to join amongst the enlisted men into the Air Force. He said, I'm going through all kind of racism. He said, you have it. And he said, just go for it. He said, go for it, follow the law, do everything right, take advantage of your rights. You have access. Don't focus on what they try to stop you from. Know that they will always continue to stop you. Focus on what you have. And I did an about face. And when I did the about face, what did I get from the regular people that didn't know me? Because those that know me, and they know what I'm about. But years later, they're like, oh man, I'm talking about following the law, following right, taking advantage. And they're like, oh, you part of the problem. And then I had to remind, I remember an incident, somebody said that, and I was like, yo, I said, yo, you heard what this guy said? And they're like, what, who, Tari, James? He's like, oh man, nah, But what it is when you come with the good solution, which this is what my brother did, he came with righteousness. They try to attack us and say, oh, you're on some old belief stuff. But you're on some old belief stuff because they teaching you to disbelieve in yourself, to believe that you nothing worth nothing but walking around on all fours, a dog, right? A female dog and a male dog. That's what you believe in yourself. This is the belief that they're teaching you. This is the belief that they get you preaching. You're preaching that every day, calling somebody a dog. Matter of fact, they had them on stage walking around on all fours like dogs because they're happy about that. So that's a belief. I'd rather have a belief that I know that has been maintained for thousands of years, that billions of people have followed, and it's been successful. And this is what the brother was trying to do and go in that direction. That is why he's locked up. That is why, because they don't want leadership that started out like what I showed you at 25, conscious like that. Not talking about the gun and all of that, talking about economics, talking about the organization, talking about leading the people, leading the right. And so to go from that to what, lose his mind? But that's how they try to do, to say, oh, well, you became religious. No, but read the book, read the whole Quran, read what it says, look at the history. Check out the show Article, whatever. It shows the history, 1,400 years of dynasties, of people, societies that have been built. And imagine what we can do if we straighten up ourselves. But if we continue to let our guidance, our book, our belief be the misguidance that they continue to show on the TV, continue to say that we believe in Jesus, but not follow his example, continue to be the enemies. Because one of the things during the time of Jesus, who was the enemies? The hypocrites. But today, it is good to be hypocritical. It's okay because God understands. Did Jesus say that? Was that example he had? Did Muhammad say that? We look at it, we look at the Arabs, and we look at them for example. No, we don't. We look at Allah, what he has says, an example of the best generation. Because we look at what happened after the Prophet left, the same people, Arabs, who killed, the companions. They killed the Khalifas, Umar was killed, right? Uthman was killed. Ali, his sons, by who? So we learn our faith, our religion from the guidance that is given and by our Creator. So Ramadan is coming up. We're going to get prepared, and like I said, we're going to go over readings for Revelation during this time. Next week, we'll probably have Brother Shafi on. We're going to talk about reparations, and like I said, trying to get prepared. So, get this book, Revolution by the Book, and also get that book, that recitation that was sent down from the Creator, from up to the heavens, to the final prophet 1400 years ago. And we're going to end it with there's a promo by the son of Jamil Al Amin, who's trying to get the people to sign a petition and actually to get them involved. We tried to put it on the screen. I'm just actually going to play a part of it so you can listen to it as the show is over. But please help to stop this injustice, because this man is in prison unjustly, and he did a lot for us. Now it's time for us to do something for him.
A short clip of him saying he was wounded. From this point forward, I'll just play his entire testimony about that night, followed by a reading of the written confessions he's provided in the past.
From October of 13th of 1997 until December 22nd of 2000, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yes, sir. October 13th, 1997 to December 22nd of 2000.
Yes, sir.
All right. Isn't it true that during that incarceration you contacted the Federal Bureau of Investigations and told them that you had committed a murder and were involved in the shooting of a cop in March of 2000 in Atlanta, Georgia?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
All right. And you couldn't have, because you were in prison in Nevada, right?
No, sir. I got out of prison in 2000 in February. I was on house arrest when the murder took place. You might want to check that out. I was on house arrest. I was staying at 2380 Jernigan Street, Southwest Atlanta.
You just said that you were incarcerated in Las Vegas in 1997 through December of 2000.
I went back to prison after that shooting. I was violated and sent back to prison after the police shooting. That's why it says BP by my name. That's parole violation. If you look at the photo, it says BP beside my number. That means parole
Now
violation.
you violated your probation because you went back to prison.
Exactly. I violated after the shooting.
You were interviewed by the Federal Bureau of Investigations for that out there in Nevada prison, were you not, in July
Yes, sir.
of that year?
Yes, sir.
And he ruled you out and said you did not commit that murder in Las Vegas, correct?
I don't know what
that murder in Atlanta.
I have no idea what his conclusion was, sir.
All right, you weren't arrested for it, were you?
No, sir, I was
In
not.
fact, another person was tried and convicted.
Jamil Al Amin, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And once again, it seems to me like you were getting a lot of...
I was shot that day.
I'm sorry?
I was shot March of 2000. It happened March 17th of 2000.
Your Honor, we can take a break right now. Come back. Okay. We'll take 10 minutes.
After that, I'd probably need a break too, because that was information that was never supposed to make it into the record. As you can see, they try to discredit him at every turn, but it's not possible. He was there. He was out of prison. He was living in Atlanta. And most importantly, he was wounded in the commission of this crime. So now we have a man who has confessed to the crime, who fits the description of the crime, who was in the area during the commission of the crime, who was shot during the commission of the crime. What more do we need? At least to look at the case again. He didn't testify in the first case. If you think he's crazy, put him on the stand. Prove it. But this is the man who committed the murder that my father served 20 years for. This is the man who is also willing and able to take responsibility for that still to this day. So if nothing else, we deserve a new trial just based on this. But as you've seen, we have plenty of reasons for it. So if you were on the fence, please sign the petition. Please share the petition. We have to let the Conviction Integrity Unit, the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, and Mr. Paul Howard know that we're paying attention and we demand fairness and justice in this matter. As always, it's free Imam Jamil, and I'm going to leave you with a reading of an article about the confessions, which will give you some more detailed insight into what he's been saying for the last 20 years. This man deserves to be heard. He just doesn't want the imam to be taking the fall for a murder that he committed. It's that simple. Otis Jackson is a self-proclaimed leader of the almighty Vice Lords Nation. Founded in the late 1950s, the AVLN is one of the oldest street gangs in Chicago. According to Jackson, the group under his leadership was focused on rebuilding communities by pushing out drug dealers and violence. In a never-before-published sworn deposition, Jackson recalls the events of the night of Thursday, March 16, 2000 in vivid detail. It was a cool night, as Jackson remembers.
Yeah, I know.
He wore a knee-high black Islamic thobe with black pants, a black kufi, Muslim head covering, underneath a tan hat, and a tan leather jacket. His silver sunglasses with yellow tint sat above his full beard and mustache. He arrived at Mix around 7 p.m. when he realized his schedule had changed. He was no longer the food expediter in the kitchen. His title was now dishwasher cook, which meant he would wash dishes and then help close the kitchen at night. Since his title changed, he wasn't required to work that Thursday night. It immediately dawned on him that he had a 10-hour window to do whatever he wanted. As a parolee under house arrest, the opportunity to have truly free time was rare if it ever even existed. Jackson decided to fill his newfound freedom like most people fill their free time. He ran a few errands. His first stop was the West End Mall, where he got a bite to eat, did some shopping, and then headed toward the West End Community Mosque, led by Al Amin. He knew it was a regular building off of Oak Street, but wasn't sure which one exactly. He parked his black Cadillac in an open field and walked down toward a house that turned out to be the mosque. He passed the black Mercedes before he got to the mosque, where he met a man named Lamar Mustafa Tanner. They talked for a while, during which Jackson explained to Tanner that he was looking for Al Amin to talk about how the AVLN could help Al Amin's community. Tanner told Jackson to check the grocery store, since Al Amin could usually be found there. Tanner then gave Jackson his phone number and hurried away to go pick up his wife. Jackson proceeded to the grocery store. He wanted to discuss with Al Amin how his AVLN group could help further clean the streets of drug dealers in the West End community. By the time Jackson made his way to Al Amin's store, it was already late. He was afraid the store would be closed since he didn't see anyone else on the street. His fear was affirmed. The store wasn't open. Hoping that maybe the owner would be in the back closing up, he knocked on the door a few more times. No answer. As he turned to leave, Jackson saw a patrol car pull up. By the time Jackson walked by the black Mercedes, the patrol car was parked in front of it, nose to nose. The driver of the patrol car got out and asked Jackson to put his hands up. Immediately, the scenario flashed through Jackson's head. Here he was, violating his parole by not being at work with a 9mm handgun in his waist. Jackson was afraid the cops would think he was breaking into the store. That meant they would probably frisk him and find the gun. The gun would be a direct violation of his parole, and he'd be sent back to prison in Nevada. Jackson ignored the order to put his hands up and instead began to explain that he was not trying to break into the store. He stated that he wasn't trying to steal the Mercedes either. His car was parked down the street. Both officers were out of the car with guns drawn and demanding Jackson put his hands up. The cops were closing in, and there was little space between them. Jackson made a quick decision. He backed up against the Mercedes, pulled out his gun, and began to fire. He fired off 2 shots. The officers, while retreating, returned fire. Jackson wasn't hit and vaulted toward his car, where in the trunk he had an arsenal of other weapons. As Jackson explained, the organization I was about to form, the Almighty Vice Lord Nation, we're anti-oppression and we fight, drug dealers and whatnot, so we need artillery. He quickly opened the trunk. The lock was broken and held together with shoestring, and grabbed a lightweight semi-automatic carbine Ruger Mini 14 with an extended clip housing 40 .223 caliber rounds. Jackson then headed back toward the cops. One was moving for cover behind the Mercedes, the other on the police radio screaming for backup. Jackson approached the officer he thought was the most aggressive, who was using the Mercedes for cover, and resumed firing his rifle. The officer returned fire, hitting Jackson in the upper left arm twice. Jackson, now angered and fearful for his life, shot back, downing the officer. Jackson stood over him and shot him in the groin up to 4 times. The fallen officer, Deputy Kenshin, in a last attempt to plead with his killer, described his family, mother, and children to Jackson, hoping for mercy. But Jackson admits that by this time, my mind was gone, so I really wasn't paying attention. Jackson fired again at the officer on the ground, dripping his own blood on the concrete where he stood. Jackson then turned his attention to Deputy English, who was running toward the open field. Jackson believed English was flagging down another officer. He couldn't let him get away. Jackson hit English 4 times. One shot hit him in the leg. He soon fell, screaming, thereby confirming Jackson's shot. After English went down, Jackson, in a state of shock, walked down past the mosque. Nursing his bleeding wounds, he tried to stop 3 passing cars on the road. No one dared to pull over. He then walked back down the street and knocked on 3 different doors for assistance. Only one even turned the light on, but no one opened the door for Jackson. He then made his way back to his car and drove to his mother's home. As he walked in the door, the phone rang. His mother was asleep, so Jackson hurriedly answered it in the other room. It was a representative from the Sentinel Company that provided the monitoring service for Jackson's ankle bracelet. The man on the phone asked where Jackson was. He responded that he was at work. The Sentinel representative explained that his unaccounted for absence would have to be marked down as a violation. Jackson agreed and quickly ended the conversation. Although one bullet exited through the back of his arm, the other was still lodged in his upper left arm. Jackson called a couple of female friends who were registered nurses. The women, who were informed by Jackson that he was robbed in the middle of the night, arrived at his house and worked for 3 hours to remove the bullet from his arm. Jackson then called Mustafa Tanner, whom he had met earlier in the evening, and asked him to come by.
Well, thank you very much. Please get involved, help get this brother free, and read that book. Let's make that change. Peace be with you, and thank you very much for being on our show or listening to our show, Cultivating the Culture. Good night.